All right, welcome back. Chad Range alongside Jesse Finney, and it is that time. Segment 3 brought to you by the Knuckle Junkies. We want to hear from you, of course. Facebook /HitSquad101ESPN, Twitter handle @HitSquad101ESPN. First question coming from the Knuckle Junkies. Invicta, fight card number 7 this past weekend, featured former St. Louisan Bark Hocrank defeating Leslie Smith in the main event. What are your thoughts on the future of this all-women's promotion?
You know, there's a lot of people out there that like it, a lot of people that don't like it. I think that I love women's fights personally, but I actually think that having too many women on one fight card might be a little much. I like to switch it up just a little bit. I believe in success. UFC is doing all men, and then they're throwing some women in there, 1 or 2. Personally, that's what the promotion company that I do that does something like this. I hope that it does well. Shannon Knapp does a great job up there. Production is first class all the way. The fights are great. It's just the fact that you don't see the women with the one-hitter quitters.
That's
man.
it.
And that really, I feel like, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I feel like that the women, they started later in the sport. It's going to take a little more time for them to progress. And it's just like any sport, man. I mean, whoever started later on, it's going to take a little time to catch up to it. I think Invicta is awesome. I think that it's going to be awesome for a long time to come if they can continue to do what they're doing. If they don't get a TV deal, I think there's going to be some problems here in the near future.
I think it's, we spoke of this, it's just finding the good women out there, because this is the highest level of fighting. I think it's a great place for women to start, because you don't want to see women getting their start in the UFC, because you want someone who is seasoned, someone who is good.
I like Invicta way more than I like the Women's Tough Show. Okay?
Yeah.
So if that makes any sort of sense.
I got you. Yeah, no, absolutely.
These are women that have proven themselves throughout the years and that they're good. Okay, I would rather watch the Invicta show than I'd rather watch the Women's Tough Show.
And I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's probably tough for women in the couple of years back to say, "Well, I'm a professional fighter."
Right.
As you get used to seeing it more, it won't become so strange.
I agree.
And that, and
the women
taboo.
are only getting better.
Oh,
man.
absolutely.
If you watch
There's some good ones.
I mean, like, they're only getting better. They're getting more well-rounded at everything. And it's only going to take, the bottom line is just going to take time. And I don't know if there's enough time out there to sustain the Invicta the way it's
with just the women fighting on the card.
They're paying great money. They're paying great money. Their production is just off the chains great. They're bringing people from over the seas. They're spending tons of money right now. How long can you sustain that without a major network TV deal? If they don't get a major network TV deal, and TV controls it right now. So if they come to them and say, "Oh, we're going to give you $20,000 a show or $10,000 a show," that's not going to cut the mustard. So we'll see what happens. I hope all the best.
You would think that with Fox and the UFC kind of, being in, some other, whether it's CBS, ABC, NBC, would say, hey, this would be a nice alternative to combat that, maybe, so to speak. So it'll be interesting. Let's remember, UFC, for the longest time, lost money.
Right.
Before they were able to kind of turn it around, and now they've grown into what they are today. But moving right along, former UFC lightweight champion Forrest Griffin said that former fighters should not be judges due to their bias towards the way they used to fight. Is that fair or foul? We did talk about this, and I agree with him, and I think you did too. Yes.
I do too. I think that any which way you're booking a loser here, because let's say the fight does come close, well then he's friends of this guy, or he's friends with that guy. I think you're booking a loser. I think that the best thing to do is just get these judges more educated. That's really there's no other way around it. Get them more educated. Maybe
it would be good for some of the refs who have to ref the fight.
I disagree with that too. I just keep them out of it. I think because what's going to happen.
How are you going to educate these people, though? That's the question. I think by
the fighters. I think by the retired fighters. If they continue to educate them, and the athletic commissions. And I think that if you get guys that train in separate camps, and this camp, that camp, no matter if they're the best people in the world, at the end of the day, if something bad goes wrong, you're looking, you got to think long term, man. And then all of a sudden, someone's going to sit there and go, "Oh, well, he was friends with so and so, and he did this." Hey, when you lose, you're always looking for an excuse.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it is one of those things. The judges, I think, is really kind of coming under scrutiny more with everything that's been these close fights, that's been a real question. I still like the idea of having them get in there and defend their decision.
I love that.
Explain why that's probably one of my favorites.
Why don't you explain that for some people?
Why do you think that he won as opposed to this fighter?
And just in the main event.
Yeah, just in the main event. That would be. I think that would be a good start, and you'd really have to back up what you put down on that card. I do love that too, and it's difficult to imagine the UFC heavyweight division without Cain Velasquez, the lightweight division without John Jones, light heavyweight that is, and middleweights without Anderson Silva. Can the same be said about GSP and the welterweights, and why?
Ooh, great question. Yes, I do think it's going to be. I think if anything, GSP is he's a superstar. We all know this, but the 170 weight class is so strong. It is so strong, someone can't step up, but there will never be another GSP.
Yeah,
I mean that's just it. I think that he's a guy that he's a true mixed martial artist. That was a tough one there.
Yeah.
But I think that yes, I do see it without GSP could actually really hurt. I mean he's the biggest draw they have right now.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean he's the biggest pay-per-view buy. So you really can't argue that point.
Well, you're talking about a guy who's going to go down in the same thought of to kind of correlate it to baseball. You're talking Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio's. Right. You're talking GSP's, Anderson Silva's, John Jones's. The thing is, we're fortunate because we never got to watch Babe Ruth. We're getting to see that in the mixed martial arts. When years to come, when our kids are watching it, they'll say, "Oh, GSP, he'll be always in the talk of the greatest ever when they were in their prime." Now, having that said, eventually he's going to get beat and there's going to be a new champion, as they all will. It happens to Anderson Silva, but when it's all said and done, GSP will definitely be mentioned in the higher ups of the mixed martial arts world. And the final question from the Knuckle Junkies, always the good ones here. These have been a lot of fun to talk about. How far back did the poor showing of the women's fights at the TUF 18 finale set back women's MMA?
I think it hurt more than what people know. I really do. I don't think that it's still in the beginning stages for women's MMA. There's not. This is what Dana White said for years. There's not a ton of women to go out there and to provide and to say, okay, we got all these superstars. We got to build these superstars. There's some really good women out there right now. But we don't have a ton of them like you have in guys. I mean, there's guys that are fighting in the middle of Iowa right now. They're the guys fighting in St. Louis.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
They belong in the UFC. These are really good. And in the women's MMA, it's not at that level yet. I think it's just going to take a matter of time. And to answer your question on how far did it set it back, only time will tell.
Yeah, that's a tough one. In something like this, is there anything that they can do as far as the rules? I know you don't want to change them too much, but keep them on their feet more. Or, I mean, the thing that makes MMA so interesting is the one and done.
Right. And one thing that they did when women's MMA first started is they had 3-minute rounds instead of 5-minute rounds.
So yeah.
So it wasn't, 5 rounds. It's 5 rounds, 25 minutes plus 1 minute. So you're watching one fight.
If you get a dog fight there, yeah, that makes for a long, yeah.
And it can happen in guys as well.
Absolutely,
but
it
at
does.
the same time, I think you're watching the guys a little bit more just because it's going to be a one-hitter quitter.
Right.
And there's just not a whole lot of those happening in women's MMA right now. And hey, man, listen, it's like this. You're going to have bumps in the road. You're going to be up and you're going to be down. And you're going to be up and you're going to be down. The women's fight might come out and hear that the Anderson Silva Weidman might be the fight of the night, might be the best one. So you know what? They hit a bump in the road right now. I personally thought that the women's TUF show was terrible. I watched probably maybe out of the whole season, maybe 35, 40 minutes of it. Too much crying going on for me. Too much drama.
That's weird. You'd bring women in and there'd be a lot of drama?
Oh, it's brutal.
That's strange, but yeah. There's definitely, I think, a spot for them in mixed martial arts. I remember when I was with the World Combat League, some of the best knockouts came from the women. They would do, crazy things, and they can knock you out. They just got to get the talent of fighters there, and then I think we'll see more of that, and then I think it'll really start to go up. And I mean, having Ronda Rousey, she's a good-looking woman who's a champion. I mean, sex does sell, so they're not down and out, but we'll see what happens. Absolutely. Well, we'd like to definitely thank the Knuckle Junkies for those questions. Always a good time to get into what they touch on there. And we want to hear from you. Facebook and Twitter. Hit us up at Hit Squad 101 ESPN. Coming up for the final segment, we're going to be taking a look at the local scene. That's happening next on 101sports.com.